Hello, and welcome to our first lesson, solving linear equations. Solving linear equation is finding out what the variable, or most commonly, x is. This is something you've been doing for a while, but we're going to take it up to a higher level of complexity in this lesson. I have a system you guys are all familiar with, Pemdas, right? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which is used for the order of operations. Well, with this, solving equations, I have a system that you can follow. It's also an acronym, just like PEMDAS. And if you follow this, it'll help you from breaking any rules or making any sort of mistakes. So, when we solve equations, this is the order in which we want to do things. First, we want to distribute. Don't mind me, guys. I am incredibly nervous. I've never been on camera before. This is a first for me, so please bear with me. So after distribute, we want to clear all fractions, okay? Now, when we clear fractions, that can be done by multiplying both sides of the equation by the lowest common denominator of every fraction that exists in the fraction. We'll get to that when we see one of those problems. And any time there's not one of these steps to do, for example, if there's no fractions, you just jump on to the next step. If there's nothing to distribute, you jump right onto the next step. So the next one is to combine like terms on each side. We combine all the like terms on each side. So we have distribute, clear all fractions, combine like terms on each side, and we have move all variables to one side. Get all the x's or the w's or whatever variable it is you're trying to solve for, move them all to one side. Then, inverse, add, subtract, which is like the opposite of adding is subtracting. So if it says plus 3 on one side, you want to do the opposite, which is subtracting 3 on both sides to get the variable by itself. Writing these out might not make the most sense, but when we go through a problem, it'll start to be, you'll be more comfortable with it. And then we have inverse, multiply, divide. Math is a beautiful thing, and what you get to really understand at the higher levels is there's more than one way to go about doing a problem correctly. And as long as you don't break rules, you're going to be fine in the end. So what I'm giving you here isn't like, do it, you have to do it this way. But what this is designed to do is to help you from making mistakes in solving these more complicated linear equations than what you've seen in the past. All right, I'm gonna give you a second to write this down. Write it down. In real life, I'm gonna pause it for you. And I will erase. Let's try one. I have 2 times x minus 5 plus 3 times x equals x plus 6. Okay. So first in our steps is to distribute. Do you see anywhere where distributing is necessary? Anytime you see parentheses, that's a clue. So right here I have distribution, 2 times x minus 5. I'll take the 2 and multiply it to each one of these terms. So I get 2x minus 10 plus 3x equals x plus 6. All right? My next step, the second C, is to clear fractions. Well, as you can see, there's no fractions to clear, so we don't have to worry about that. So let's go on to the next step, which is to combine like terms on each side. I don't have any like terms on the right side of this equation. On the left side, I do have 2 like terms. I have the 2x and the 3x. I combine that, I get 5x minus 10 equals x plus 6. Okay? Now, we've combined like terms on each side. Distribute, clear fractions, combine like terms. Now, we want to move all the variables to one side. We can take this 5x and move it over here. We can take this x and move it over here, and both are allowed, but one is probably more adventurous than the other, and one is probably a little safer to do. I'm going to take the safe bet. I'm going to subtract this x and this x. 4x minus 10 equals 6. Now, the next step is our first I. I'm going back to the acronym. It was D, C, C, M, I. And that would be inverse add subtract. The opposite of subtracting is adding 10 plus 10 plus 10. 4x equals 16. And finally, my last step, inverse divide. The opposite of multiplying by 4. To get rid of this 4, we're going to divide by 4. And x is equal to 4. There's my solution. X equals 4. You can plug it in and check. It works. All right. Let's give you guys a second to try one. Okay, good. Let's take it to the next level. Let's bring it to a spice level 4. How do you feel about that? I'm going to erase this one. All right, so I've got 2 times 5 plus x plus 1/3 equals 2x minus 3 times x minus 1/2. Now I think what you're going to notice that makes this a little more difficult, that spice level 4 that I was talking about, is the fractions. That's okay. The good thing about equations is I know a lot of students, they don't like working with fractions, but we can clear them out pretty easily. So we're going to follow the steps. D, distribute first. So 2 times both this 5 and this x is going to be 10 plus 2x plus 1/3. Notice I didn't distribute that 2 to the 1/3 because that 1/3 wasn't in these parentheses. That's a common mistake. Equals 2 times x. Now look, I have a -3 that I need to distribute. So -3 times x is -3x. And I have -3 times -1/2. Now remember, multiplying fractions is super easy. you just take the top number and multiply it by the top number. So we have 3 as a top number, and we multiply it by this 1. We have negative 3 times negative 1 is plus 3. And then on the bottom, I just have that 2. The denominator for this 3 would actually be a 1, but we don't really write when something's over 1. So it would be 1 times 2. You would get the 2 on the bottom. So when you multiply fractions, it's top times top, bottom times bottom. All right. We didn't do this in the last problem, but for this one, the next step is to clear the fractions. Well, if you look at my denominators, I have a 3 and I have a 2. And we want to find the smallest number that both of those numbers will go into evenly, which is also called the lowest common denominator. So I'm going to multiply both of these sides of this equation by that lowest common denominator, and that lowest common denominator is 6. So I have 6 times 10 is 60 plus 12x. Now, multiplying fractions is easy. Top number is 6. 6 times 1 is 6. So I have 6 on top. And then 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. Super easy to multiply fractions. Let me know if you need more help with that, though. And on this right side, I'm going to multiply everything by 6 as well. So 6 times 2x is 12x. 6 times negative 3x is negative 18x, plus 6 times 3 is 18. Again, top number, 6 times top number, 3, 18. And 18 divided by 2 is 9. Now, we're at combining like terms on each side. So on this left side of the equation, I have a 60 and I have a 2. And 60 plus 2 is 62. Plus 12x equals, and here I have 12x minus 18x, which is negative 6x plus 9. What's next? Yeah, moving all variables to one side. I can take this 12x and move it over here by subtracting it, or I can take the negative 6x and move it to the left. I'm going to move the negative 6x. The reason I like to move the negative 6x is to keep my x variables positive. But if you feel like living on the adventurous side, you can go the other route. So I add 6x, and I get 62 plus 18x equals 9. All right, now, inverse add again. The opposite of adding 62 is subtract 62. Minus 62, minus 62, and I get, I'm going to continue right over here. I get 18x is equal to 9 minus 62, which is going to be negative 53. All right. Now, the next step would be to divide by 18. And then x is equal to negative 53 over 18. And I hope you can read this. This is new to me. My handwriting is really bad as it is. But negative 53 over 18 is what we get. Okay. Let's just do one more, just one more. All right, this last one is going to be x plus 1 over 3 plus 2x over 3 equals x plus 1/3. All right. The reason I want to demonstrate this one is it doesn't look terrible, except for this first part. You have a numerator with 2 terms. So one thing you can do when you write this, if you want to make it simpler, is to separate it. X plus 1 over 3 can also be written as x over 3 plus 1 over 3. It's the same thing, and the reason is, if you were to combine these two fractions, they have a common denominator that would stay the same, and you would combine the numerators, but they don't combine because they're not like terms. So if you have 2 terms in the numerator like this, you can separate it. All right, plus 2x over 3 equals x plus 1 over 3. There is no distributing this time. So if you want to, from here, you can go straight to clearing the fractions. That would be the next step. And since the lowest common denominator is 3, we're going to multiply both sides of the equation by 3. It's really neat. I'm so nervous. So if I multiply by 3, 3 times x is 3x over 3. You have 3x over 3, but really what's going to happen is those 3's cancel. So you're left with x. And 3 times 1 over 3 would be 3 over 3. Anything over itself is 1. So many different ways to look at it. Or those 3's cancel, and you're left with just 1. And 3 times 2, which is 6, 6 over 3 is 2. But again, look, this 3 is going to cancel this 3. You're left with just 2x. The fractions are gone. On the left side, so 3 times x is 3x. And then 3 times 1 over 3, or 3 times 1/3, is just 1. Now, combine like terms on each side. X plus 2x is 3x plus 1 equals 3x plus 1. And now we're going to move all variables to one side. Subtract 3x, subtract 3x, and I'm left, oh no, all the x's went away. I'm glad they did, because this is going to lead us into something that we're going to talk about in the next lesson. When all the x's go away, you can't find a specific solution. What a bummer. We were left with 1 equals 1, which is a true statement. We're going to talk about that next time we meet. But yeah, there's not going to be a solution to this equation. What a bummer. Okay, not one solution. Anyway, thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate it. You all have a wonderful day, okay?